Hi, my name is Daniel Sproll. I'm a co-founder of realities.io and one of the developers behind Puzzling Places. We recently had the pleasure to launch Puzzling Places for the Apple Vision Pro, and at a recent meetup I gave a talk about how we redesigned it for that. As it seemed the talk was helpful for a lot of people and more curiosity is around, we thought we're going to record that and share that with all of you. I hope you can take something away. One disclaimer to begin with, these are our lessons learned. So I'm really speaking exclusively about our development process of bringing Puzzling Places to Apple Vision Pro. This is not in any way official advice. We don't have any special relationship with any hardware manufacturer here or something like that. This is just stuff that we learned, and also this is stuff that we learned in 2.5 months of working on that in isolation without the ability to test because the devices were not out. So it's a lot of guesses, it's a lot of intuition, it's a lot of design decisions that we made that might be completely wrong. We felt we arrived at something that was quite fun and good, that we're happy with. And so we're happy to share, but take it all with a grain of salt. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. I want to start by giving you an overview about Puzzling Places, the VR version, just so you have a bit of context. If you know the game, you might want to skip that part. Then I'm going to talk about key design dimensions for the Apple Vision Pro that we identified that helped us guiding our design process. And then I want to talk about actually redesigning Puzzling Places for Apple Vision Pro and how these design dimensions and the choices that we made there impacted the design. And in the end, I'm going to close with a few takeaways. Puzzling Places is a relaxing VR jigsaw puzzle game in 3D. So 3D here means we take 3D models that we scan with photogrammetry of real-world places, and we slice them up into little pieces that you can puzzle together like a jigsaw puzzle in VR. So this is not a puzzler in the game sense where you have to solve riddles or something like that. This is literally 3D jigsaw puzzling in VR. You start with a bunch of pieces in front of you on a shelf. You can drag them close to you, you can inspect them, you can sort them, and then you can stick them together with the controllers or with your hands right in front of you. And in the end, you end up with a wonderful little diorama of the place. It also has a really cool soundscape that comes to life while you puzzle. And overall, it's just a very relaxing and meditative experience. It gives you this feeling of flow state. Some players even described it as therapeutic and wholesome, and it really aims to give you this tangible feeling of progression, of building something, of going from chaos to order, and just the satisfaction that comes along with that. Additional elements, of course, are exploration and education, because all these places are real places and you get to see them, you get to explore them, and often it's places that you probably would have never seen otherwise. So you get a little bit of that world tour vibe as well. And as I said, all the places are created from photogrammetry, so they're really photorealistic and just fun to look at, fun to explore while you puzzle them. We always joke it's a meditation app in disguise that tricks you to pay a lot of attention to detail in these places. The audience is very casual. It's a relatively old audience as VR standards go. They're wonderful. They require very little Discord moderation and these kind of things. So the game feel also kind of fits the audience there in the sense that they're very chill, very relaxed folks. And it's also a live service game. So since we launched in September 21, we by now added over 160 additional new puzzles. We do monthly puzzle packs with about 6 puzzles every month. Sometimes we even add additional single premium puzzles or free puzzles during the month. We've built a very good content pipeline to achieve that. And aside from just adding more and more content that you can get through purchased DLC packages or subscription, we also continue to add new features to the actual core game. For example, last fall, winter, we launched multiplayer and hand tracking and some other things. So the game is in continuous development across some platforms. Something that might also be interesting, especially as we're going to talk about Apple Vision Pro today, we already shipped color pass-through, so it's a mixed reality game for Quest and other platforms, meaning you can use the video pass-through to see your surrounding, and on Quest 3 that means, of course, color pass-through, and a really good, you can get a really good view of your surrounding. We've already implemented hand tracking controls across some platforms, so we have experience in that. And we even have experience with eye tracking interfaces. We built that for the PSVR 2 and the Quest Pro, the two headsets that have eye tracking. And there it basically is an interface element that allows players to fine-tune their selection of the hand ray and just benefit from that. So all these things are relevant for Apple Vision Pro. We're in no shape or form ready to just take and apply there, but we had experience working with these kind of technologies, which was definitely super helpful. So enough about the Quest version. Let's talk about 3 key design dimensions for Apple Vision Pro. So design dimensions here means these are dimensions that will determine where you end up in your design space of your game. The first one is the tech stack. There you can, for Apple Vision Pro, either go with the Apple tools, meaning Swift, Swift UI, Reality Kit, and this whole new tech stack that they brought in for the Apple Vision Pro development now. Or your other alternative is working with Unity. They are also shipping support for Apple Vision Pro and making Apple Vision Pro apps. The second dimension is spatial representation. Spatial representation is how you can represent the game on Apple Vision Pro. So Apple Vision Pro allows you to have your game as a 2D window. You can also have 3D content in there, so there's some sort of depth. That's also how all the classical iPad and iPhone apps are represented. You can go into a volume. So that's a cube floating in front of you that all your game content lives in. Or you can go to full immersive, where an app takes over the user's surrounding, and that is then very much what you know from other VR headsets like the Quest or MR headsets, like the Quest 3 or the PSVR, where like the app really is all there is in your environment. Then the third dimension that we have are interactions or interfaces. And here you either have indirect interactions, so that's how a lot of VisionOS stuff works. So like the OS level on the Apple Vision Pro, you look at something, so your eyes become a cursor, and then you do little gestures to do the interactions. And that is different to direct interaction, where you would actually like grab an object with your hand, move it around. You know, you would like chop something or just directly interacting with things. So, as I said, I think it's really important that in the beginning of your design phase, you think about how you want to position yourself across these 3 dimensions, because they will affect a lot of your design decisions that you make along the way. They might limit some ways, they might open up some others. So how do we choose? As we've never written a single line of Swift code in our lives, being game developers, we decided that learning a completely new tool set would be a bit dangerous for the timeline that we had. So we went with good old Unity here. For the spatial representation, we actually made quite a bit of a change from Puzzling Places. You could assume we would just go with the immersive mode, but we really wanted to like dive into what makes the Apple Vision Pro special, and we felt that building a volume app would be the most interesting one, because we felt that's the new thing, and we really wanted to dig into that. On the interactions, we went with indirect interactions. Again, this might surprise you, because the interactions that we have in the VR version of Puzzling Places are very much direct interactions, like you grab puzzle pieces, you move them around. But again, we wanted to really dive into this new device and find out these new paradigms, if they make sense for our game, if we can work with them, and if we maybe even can make the game better or different in interesting new ways. So here we also went with kind of what is happening on the OS level, which are these indirect gestures and indirect interactions. So now that we had a look at these 3 design dimensions and how we picked across all 3, let's dive into actually redesigning puzzling places for the Apple Vision Pro, and how these design dimensions and the choices we made there actually went into the implementation. So first on the tech stack, that one should be fairly quick. As I said, Puzzling Places is a mature live service game. We built that completely in Unreal 4, and all the proven SDKs and integrations were out when we were developing. So there was no tools that were still in the process of being development or really early. So we were really fortunate there. We weren't in any way constrained, and we could really dig into. Nevertheless, even the first version of Puzzling Places was a very constrained prototype, and we made really good experiences with this approach of building really an MVP, a minimal viable product, to test out a new platform and to get to know it. And this is what we did for the Apple Vision Pro as well. So we really focused on building a very, very polished, minimal viable product, a game that feels really good, that does everything that it does well, that looks great, but might not have the scope of a full game. And this was a particularly good choice given the fact that we were making this from scratch in Unity, because Unreal has no support yet for Apple Vision Pro. And also given that the SDK where we were developing before the launch actually was very much work in progress. So there were a lot of things that might not work right away out of the box as you would be used to in Unity. And so building this MVP allowed us to really cut some corners and just make some smart decisions and not being super inflexible by having a huge scope. So let's dig into spatial representation. Here it gets much more interesting in my opinion. VR is this infinite canvas of a simulated world. So as a user, you really step into a entire new world that is at your disposal. And as an app developer, this is really great because the app is all there is. You can use it as you please. The players can use it as they please, and you can really fill it up. Another really cool effect that you have is that you can basically know that you have the player's full attention. So there's nothing else happening. They are in your app and they will play this app. Also, locomotion is possible, although still tricky with simulation sickness, but you can do it. So this leaves you with a lot of real estate that you need to fill and that you can fill. For Puzzling Places, this meant that we created this very tranquil scene where there's nothing really in the background distracting you. That was actually quite a big task to come up with something that felt not suffocating, but also not where you didn't feel lost. So we came up with this kind of pond environment. There's a little bit of stuff to ground you, and then you have a big shelf a few meters away from you with all the pieces lined up, or about 100 pieces lined up that you can pick from. So you start with a lot of pieces visible. You can even turn it to a 360 mode where you have all pieces visible, and you can start searching. You don't have any single piece in the middle or something like that in the beginning, but you really have to pick one piece, start, find another one that fits to it, and do this whole sorting thing. And you can really use the world to do this kind of sorting. You can leave all the roof pieces over there. You can maybe leave all the forest pieces over there, and then while you puzzle, you can walk around to your little heaps of pieces, or you can use the grouping functionality that we've built into and really spatialize that out into your world, especially during this early sorting phase. So in the end, it's a world around you filled with interactable objects that you can interact with at your own choosing while you want, when you want. For the Apple Vision Pro, this is a bit different. As we went with the Volume app, we had suddenly quite limited real estate. It is this block floating in front of you that you can fill. You can choose the size, but also making it too big kind of kills the purpose of it. So you can't make it huge. And that suddenly leaves you with much less real estate. Also because it's per default, in a pass-through in spatial computing, you really have to be aware that other things might be going on. So your volume might be one among many. People might be watching YouTube, being in a call, doing spreadsheets, or even browsing the web or doing anything else. So In that sense, you suddenly don't have the user's full attention anymore. You can't count on it, at least. In that sense, also, we decided to design puzzling places in a way that requires a bit less cognitive load, and something that can be done a bit more in a multitasking environment. Also, locomotion in that volume is possible theoretically, of course. There's no hard technical reason why to do it, but like conceptually, it's a bit weird and like a bit hard. At least we didn't want to like tackle that one for this early version. So we came up with something like this. You start with a single piece in front of you, and you have 4 pieces on the side. All of these 4 pieces can be attached to the centerpiece. So basically, we skip this entire process of sorting. The pieces come pre-sorted as you puzzle them. You pick a single one, you attach it to the centerpiece. You can rotate the centerpiece, so you still have this like 3D-ness, this spatiality of the puzzle. Also, you see it in 3D. It's gorgeous. It looks great on the high-resolution displays. But we really limit the amount of stuff that is going on. Instead of having all the pieces there, you just have the selection. You start puzzling, and while you puzzle, it gets filled up with new pieces until you're done in the end. It's in a way much more streamlined, much more linear, and just a bit more focused, requiring, as I said, like less cognitive load to play, but still being very delightful. It's even more flow state inducing than the VR version, in our opinion, and it basically results in a very different overall feel and almost like a different game. I wouldn't say like one is better than the other. It's just very different, and we felt like it's just what made much more sense on this platform. All right. In the end, basically, we said it's an interactable object in the user's world instead of a world filled with interactable objects, which makes sense because it lives in this volume. All right, let's talk about interface. For VR, the way user interfaces have been tending to in the last years has been this embodied direct interaction paradigm. It's full tangible control over all degrees of freedom for the player. So people can grab stuff, they can translate it, move it around, they can rotate everything. And they have like very much the same level of control almost that they would have in real life. You can pick up a bow, you can shoot that, you can take a glass bottle, throw it on the ground, it will shatter. So the fidelity contract is very, very similar to what you would have in the real world. All the way down to like how you interact with things, as long as it's grabbing. I mean, you still can't play the piano with most apps, but you can grab stuff, you can interact with it, and they will kind of behave as in the real world. And all these things are direct, so you directly press a button, and it's not so much abstracted. So for puzzling places, this looks a bit like this. If you want to place a piece, you pick it up, and then you have to move it around with your hand to find where it goes, and you also have to really rotate it with your hand. So, and you have to then find the place where it goes, rotate it in the right direction, slot it in, let go. So this is very much like you would do with a real-world puzzle, even a flat one. You pick the piece, you move it to the right spot, you rotate it, you slot it in. Because you have all this fine-grained control, you have like full rotational control, you have translational control, you have everything. Apple Vision Pro does things a bit different, especially if you go with indirect gestures. I mean, you can fully go with direct gestures. There was like no hard technical reasons why we couldn't go with the same kind of interaction paradigm. It just felt that it was not the right fit for the platform, especially after we've seen how Apple does a lot of their OS level stuff. It kind of creates the expectation that these indirect gestures also apply for the games. So Apple has these magical indirect interactions, or the Apple Vision Pro has these magical indirect interactions. It's almost like mind reading and enacting it. So if you look at something, you declare your intent of maybe picking up a piece by looking at it, and then you perform a little gesture. You actually pick it up and move it around. And a lot of because you have a lot less degrees of freedom. For example, you don't have the rotational input necessarily. This information needs to be coming from somewhere else, and that's where assistive controls come in. So how does this look for puzzling places? In the beginning, we thought a lot about whether we should like somehow have like gestures for rotation and so on. But all this felt weird. It felt like layering something on top. So instead, what we do is we let you like choose a piece, pick it up, and then you can move it around the actual puzzle. Even like the depth is kind of like aided. You can move it in depth, but we will kind of help you to place it in a correct way, or in like an advantageous way. And then when you move around the slots, the piece will automatically rotate in the right spot or in the right direction, or try to like rotate itself into like a correct direction for that spot. And if you find the right spot, it will go into the right direction, and you can just like slot it in. So internally, we've been coming to think about that as the Octopus Paradigm. So I don't know if you know this, but the central nervous system of the octopus is interesting in a way that it is decentralized. Octopuses do have a brain, but they also have these ganglia in all of their tentacles. The ganglia, I like think of it as like small brains. And it is thought that like an octopus, its crown, so the brain in the head, is just forming a general intent of what it wants to do. Maybe like eat that mollusk over there, or like eat that thing, and then the tentacles will actually do the fine-grained tasks of execution. So they will, think about how to grab the thing, how to move it around, and all the details. So it's kind of this. It's very similar to what we do in our interface in Puzzling Places on the Apple Vision Pro, where you as a user you formulate a general intent by looking and tapping or like moving, and then our interface will do kind of the legwork for you and find the right orientation, move things around, and all this kind of like detail work. And it's a really, really fun experience when it works well, because it feels very magical. It feels very seamless when the piece just like rotates right, exactly as you wanted it to, without you having to do much. But of course, it also has this dangerous side to it that if you don't do it well, and the interface does not do what you want, or like it misunderstands you, then it feels very clunky and frustrating. We went with that risk this time, and we felt like we made a good job, and it pretty much does what we wanted to do most of the times. But also, Puzzling Places is not the most complex game, so maybe for us it works really well. If it works for you, you have to find out with whatever you're designing for. Just be aware of that pitfall and test a lot. So, takeaways. The name of the game bringing Puzzling Places to Apple Vision Pro was simplification. And we've already seen like a little bit of discourse around that online, that people were saying, it's like, oh yeah, we stripped things away. We kind of did. We did strip things away. We streamlined things. But then other people were really interested also seeing that, and were actually asking us to bring that kind of game mode to the Quest. So I think there's no better or worse or simpler or more complex. It's, I think, what you enjoy. It has to feel right. It has to feel right for the platform. And we, as I said earlier, really wanted to like dive in all the way into learning what makes Apple's approach to spatial computing different, and how their paradigm is new. Because we wanted to really just master that and see also what can we learn maybe that we can bring back to other devices and other implementations. As it always is in design, you really have to understand the problem space super well in order to do good simplification and really streamline it down. Well, let's go over some of the areas where we simplified. On the tech side, very clear, we built this MVP, very limited scope with this work in progress tech stack that has gotten a lot better as we build it, and is openly available now, so much more to do now, but still a little bit limited compared to like vanilla Unity. Spatial representation, or like the use of space, so we went from a world full of objects to interactable objects, or to one interactable object in the user's world. So it's really, you don't have like a full world that you need to fill, but you have a lot more focus using these volumes than you would have traditionally in VR. And that's a really interesting way, because it changes how you can represent information, how you can represent interactions, and also how much cognitive load you can expect from the users. Then interactions and interface. we went from this paradigm of direct control, full direct embodied control, more to this indirect, more assistive interface, following the Octopus Paradigm, where while users basically give up some of the fine-grained control, and they will expect for like a more complex application to, basically the interface to pick up that slack, or like to basically do it for them. And when it's done well, it can feel really cool, really magical, and especially for a game like us that's about this, has this meditative vibe, it can induce this flow state. And then overall gameplay, again, we simplified it, we made it a bit more linear, we skipped this whole part of sorting that can be, for some players, also quite frustrating for like large puzzles. And we went with something that is a bit more simplified and streamlined, but still very fun and engaging, and preserves this core vibe of puzzling. And we feel this fits, again, very well the platform. During our development for Apple Vision Pro, we kind of started to think about the Apple Vision Pro in the context of puzzling places as this spatial 3D screen that is floating in front of you, and you standing in front of it, having this 2.5D input. So you have 3D input, but it's a little bit more simplified, and also because you're kind of almost spoiled from like how easy it is to interact with the OS. If you suddenly require users to like do a lot of like arm moving and getting up and moving around, it just feels weird. So we try to really match this very chill, indirect interaction paradigm, and this 3D screen floating in front of you, still giving you a really wonderful view of these mini models, but not basically bringing you to a whole new world every time, which is also maybe one of those parts where it creates a lot of friction in VR. And then finally, something that we observed and that was really interesting to us is that the app, as we ended up with it, is almost closer to a 2D game, to maybe something that you could play on mobile or on a flat screen, maybe like a Switch or something like that, than to like a traditional VR game. And it's really interesting. It seems there is this continuum that is spun up on like the one hand on like a pancake 2D game, classical game, to like a fully immersive VR game. And it feels to us almost that the design that we came up with sits somewhere in the middle. And I also feel maybe this is like a good fit for the Apple Vision Pro, to have something that is a bit more in between these extremes, because it just feels more at home to do it that way on VisionOS. So I hope that was all interesting to you and helpful, because we're at the end. And I can just urge you to try out the game if you have an opportunity. It's free on VisionOS. It's of course also on all the other platforms still. So give it a go, compare it, try it out, let us know what you think. We're really curious to just get a lot of feedback for this, and also let us know if this presentation was helpful for you. We might do more of that stuff in the future then. Thanks a lot for watching, and take care.